The way a crow shook down on me, the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to explore the new poem called Dust of Snow. Without any further ado, let's begin our journey into the world of Robert Frost. So, Robert Frost lived from 1874 to 1963 and was one of the most important American poets of the 20th century. He became famous for writing poems about nature and rural life, especially the countryside of New England. He portrayed through his poetry. However, his poems are not only about nature, they also express human emotions and experiences such as choices, loneliness, struggle, and hope. So, when we talk about Robert Frost, then we have to say that he was a kind of nature poet. But unlike the romantic poets, he used nature as a symbol to reflect human experiences such as joys, struggle, loneliness, duty, and responsibility. So his poems basically uh, on the surface level they appear very simple, but they always carry deeper philosophical meanings. One of the striking features that one can find in Robert Frost's poetry is that his use of colloquial language, or the language that people speak on daily basis. So this made his poems realistic, relatable, and easy for common readers to understand. At the same time, he also followed traditional poetic forms, rhyme schemes, and meters, which gave his poetry musical quality and discipline. Robert Frost's poem Dust of Snow is a very short and simple poem, but it carries a powerful message. So this poem shows how a small moment in nature can completely change a person's mood. The poet begins his day feeling upset and disappointed. However, when a crow sitting on a hemlock tree shakes snow onto him, the light touch of snow lifts his spirits. So, what makes this interesting is that both the crow and the hemlock tree are normally seen as symbols of sadness or bad luck. They are always associated with inauspicious things. Yet, in the poem, they become the reason for the poet's sudden happiness. So, this irony teaches us that positive change can come from unexpected places, even from unexpected things. So, the poem reminds us that nature has the ability to refresh our minds and help us see things differently. Even a tiny experience like snowfall can brighten a dull day. First suggests that we should appreciate the small things in life, and because sometimes they hold the power to transform our mood and thoughts. So, in the end, the poet realizes that his problems were not as big as they seemed, and nature helped him overcome his negative feelings. So, this poem encourages us to stay open to little moments of joy, even when they come from unlikely sources. Now that we know a little about Robert Frost, let's talk about some of his most famous poems. First, we have The Road Not Taken. So, you all must have heard these lines which say, Two roads diverge in a yellow wood. So, this poem is basically about the choices we make in life. The road the poet chooses represents a decision, and the road he doesn't take represents opportunities left behind. Frost shows us how one choice can change our entire future. So, this is what he has said in this poem. Next is stopping by woods on a snowy evening. So, in this poem, the poet stops near a forest and watches the snow falling quietly. So, it feels peaceful and calm, right? But the poem also reminds us that Even though we want to rest and enjoy beauty, but in life we have responsibilities to fulfill. So that's why he says, and miles to go before I sleep. Then we have mending wall. So here in this poem, Frost talks about two neighbors repairing a wall every year. So one neighbor believes that good fences make good neighbors, while the other questions, do we really need this wall? So through this, Frost makes us think about boundaries, both physical and emotional. Another poem that he wrote is Breaches. So in this poem, Frost describes breach trees bending, but he does not stop at nature. He connects it to childhood. He talks about how children climb these trees and swing on them. It's playful, but it's also shows our desire to escape life's troubles and go back to simpler times. Finally, there is this poem called Fire and Ice. So this is a very short poem, but very powerful. Why? Because Frost in this poem talks about how the world might end. So we have this popular beliefs about the world, that the world will might the world might end either in fire or in ice. So fire stands for desire and passion, ice stands for hatred and coldness. So the poem is actually about strong human emotions that can destroy the world. The poem begins in this manner, which says, the way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. So, this very first stanza talks about a moment when the poet is enveloped in despondency and walking beneath a hemlock tree. And this tree traditionally associated with toxicity and sorrow. So, as he passes under its branches, the poet happens to get a fine snowflake on him. Now, it is very important to notice that both the crow and the hemlock tree are traditionally considered symbols of negativity. Society has given us the idea that crows are associated with bad luck, death, or ominous signs, and hemlock is a poisonous tree connected with sorrow and gloom. So, therefore, the poet wants to say that we must not judge things merely by the negative meaning society attaches to them. So, in this poem, the crow and the hemlock tree, both commonly linked with misfortune, become the very instrument that lift the poet's spirits. So, first, highlights that even sources considered dark or undesirable can bring unexpected joy, comfort, and transformation. So normally what we see that we are trained to avoid such symbols and treat them as unpleasant. But in this poem, Robert Frost challenges these preconceived notions. Instead of bringing misfortune, the crow and the hemlock actually become unexpected agents of change. The small shower of snow, though seemingly insignificant, transforms the poet's mood. It shakes him out of his depressed or frustrated state and fills his heart with a sense of relief and hope. So, through this poem, the poet teaches us that even things society labels as negative can carry beauty, meaning, and positivity. Sometimes comfort and joy come from the most unlikely places. Next part of the poem says that has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. So here the poet tells us about the effect of a small unexpected event on his mood. Initially, he was walking in a state of sadness, regret, or frustration. The phrase a change of mood shows a sudden positive transformation in his emotional state. It emphasizes how even tiny experiences in life can have a profound effect on our feelings. The next line says, and saved some part of a day I had rued. So reveals that the poet's day was not going well. He was regretting or lamenting the events of the day, but this brief encounter with nature, the snow falling from the crow on the hemlock tree, rescues part of his day. So, Frost wants us to understand that happiness and relief can come from the simplest things in life, even when everything seems bleak. So, Robert Frost shows us that life's challenges and gloomy moments can be softened by small, unexpected encounters with nature. Through the small act of a snowflake falling from a crow on a hemlock tree, the poet's mood is lifted, teaching us that joy and positivity can come from the most unlikely sources. The poem reminds us to stay observant, open minded, and grateful for the little things around us because they have the power to transform our outlook and bring hope even on difficult days. So, nature, so he talks about the nature that nature has the ability to transform our emotions and bring comfort even in small doses. Life often surprises us with happiness from unlikely resources, a snowflake, a bird, or even a moment in nature. Sometimes changing the way we perceive an event or incident can turn regret or sadness into joy. So, this is what we get to know when we learn this poem, that even a difficult day can be redeemed. Frost teaches us to remain open to small pleasures as they can have a profound impact.